Hey, good afternoon. How are you all today? And welcome to Integrative Preparedness. I am Steve Smith. I'm going to talk about gender roles after SHTF today. This is an interesting topic. It's one that a lot of people think about, and we have a lot of conversation about. Before we get to that, did you hear about the guy the FBI killed this morning who had made threats against Biden? So they raided his house early this morning and killed him. I'll probably be talking about some more of that over on the American Reversion channel. Interesting times, aren't they? For those of you who are with us, before I get started on today's topic, for those of you who are with us on Patreon, I've just put up part 8 of the reading of my first book, The Reversion. So we're up to part 8 now, if you don't know what I'm talking about, over on the Patreon channel. I've had people ask me for years when I'm going to put up an Audible book for my series, my book series. And I finally decided how to do it, and I'm doing it, reading it myself, because I had a lot of people ask for that, doing that over on the Patreon channel. So if you're with us over there, or you're watching this on Patreon, it's on the Stone Mount channel. It's not. It's on the second level, the $5 a month level, not on the entry level. We got a lot of stuff on the entry level. So if you're not with us at all on Patreon, you do well to come on over there. There's just so much more over there than there is on the YouTube channel. We'd love to have you there, and we don't get a lot of the silliness over on Patreon that sadly we get on YouTube. But it's just a great place, and if you're really serious about it, we'd love to have you over there. So like I say, we're up to part 8 on the book, and when I was reading ahead, what I'm going to be reading tomorrow, I came to the part in the Reversion that brought about this topic of what I'm going to be talking about today. And just a reminder that this and all of my videos are brought to you by the Stone Mount series, my books, The Reversion, The Revival, The Renewal, and Appeal to Heaven, The Blessings of Freedom, and Hostages to Fortune, the complete guide to everything you would ever need to know about how to prepare for, survive, and rebuild after a total catastrophe. Have you all seen all the solar activity that's out there? We are getting hit and hit and hit. And there was an interesting article that I'll probably be talking about on Patreon about one they have just discovered hit in 1940 that was much more devastating than they thought. We have smart people over on Patreon who can discuss the science of that better than I can, but I'm going to be talking about that. Okay, gender roles in SHTF. I found it very interesting that when my first book was published, as the reviews started rolling in, 2 things happened. I got a whole bunch of 5-star reviews from women. My wife joked about it, saying, well, you must be a romance novelist instead of an SHTF novelist. But I did get, now I got from, the majority were probably men, as I think back. But just so many, it surprised me. I didn't figure that women would really be interested in this genre of literature. And so I was surprised. When people at the hospital where I worked at the time found out that I'd written a book, some people bought it, and I was amazed that so many of the people who came to me raving about the book were women. And as I see, and if you read the comments here, you'll see that there are a lot of females commenting. And when I get orders through our website, and I probably should have said that my books are available either through Amazon, the link's down below, or through my website, stonemount.us. So many, I don't know if quite half, but I tell you what, close to half are from women. And it has kind of been like that. Now, over on the Patreon side, I'm not sure what the percentages would be for overall members or patrons. I haven't gone down the list to take a look, but I'll say we have almost half of our normal regular commenters are women. That says something. That says a lot, and I want to address that. And many of them say that they're having a hard time getting their husbands involved. Okay. You know, interesting, and I meant to say this also earlier, that at the beginning when I started seeing the reviews of my books on Amazon, although I got a whole lot of great ones, I got a few really hateful ones. And their main problem with me seemed to be that I returned people to their traditional gender roles. And I found that very interesting because, first off, I love strong women. My mother, I was raised by I was raised by mom and dad. I had both. Fortunate for me. My mother was a strong woman. I married a strong woman. I have a lot of friends who are strong women. I like strong women just like I like strong men. I can't stand a weakling man or a woman. I don't care which. And interestingly enough, in my books, when those people would say he returns people to their traditional gender roles, I said, you know, there's more women killing people in my books than men. Not that that makes, you know, strength, but just to let you know. I'm going to read a couple of spots here to where I address gender roles in my first book, The Reversion. I'll be reading the chapter that includes one of these sections tomorrow on the Patreon channel, and then the next chapter that does the other one the following day. But I'm going to read two sections here that kind of cover this, and then I want to use that as a jumping off point to talk about gender roles and what people, you know, might expect, could expect, think they should expect, and want, actually. And I'm really looking forward to hearing all of your comments on this. Okay. Here we have, just to bring you up real quick, we have at Stonemont, they have a number of people have joined them. Jim and Kelly are the parents of their Christian, and Mike came along. Christian is Jim's nephew, and they brought with them three people that they saved from being gang raped and killed on the highway, Bill, Ann, and Tracy. Bill and Ann are the parents, Tracy is the daughter. So as they've got these all together, it's a few days after the collapse of everything, and Jim has said, we're sitting down, and they're talking about what they need to do to provide for more people and to try to help more people and things like that. So I'll start here about a paragraph before we get to the meat, so you get an idea. Jim turned to Christian, that's his nephew, who was a former police officer like Jim was. Christian, you're in charge of security. All the lighting at Stonemont is low voltage LED, so the solar panels and wind turbines can run them all and still have reserve. We have more lights in the bunker and plenty of wire, plus we have solar-powered lights, trail cameras, and battery-operated wireless surveillance cameras and alarms. I'd like you to do a complete security survey of the place and add what's needed to get us sewn up tight. Let me know if you need anything else. Now, he's already given some duties to Mike, and so he's kind of running through and saying, here's what I'd like everybody to do so that we're all working together. Jim addressed the group as a whole. Here now we're getting to the meat. The women will be responsible for supplies, inventory control, meal preparation, and physical maintenance of the property. That means keeping everything running. I would like all of you to be armed whenever you are outside your home. And from now on, we will consider the main open area around the main house, the guest house, and the barns as a security zone. No women or children outside the zone without an armed man. He started to continue, but Tracy, the daughter of the other two, she has just graduated law school at the University of Kansas, raised her hand. She says, no offense, Mr. Wyatt, I mean Jim, but you seem to have the women doing all the cooking and cleaning like in the old days. As much as I appreciate what you've done for us, if this is going to be a throwback to Little House on the Prairie where the women do all the work while the men go running around, then I'm afraid I'm not interested. Tracy, a shocked Ann, that's Tracy's mother, exclaimed as the table fell silent and Bill, her father, put his head in his hands. Well, it's true, Mom, said Tracy. Women can do anything a man can do, and I'm not going to throw away all my hard work to revert to a second-class citizen. The table remained silent as everyone stared at Tracy, then looked at Jim. He thought about going through all the reasons for such a separation of labor, but knew that words never changed anyone's personal perspective like experience and reality did. He leaned back in his chair and smiled. Well, Tracy, if you think that so-called women's work is less important and more tedious than the running around we men do, I assure you it's not. Actually, the traditional roles reflect the high esteem and value a culture places on women, who themselves value those roles for the sake of their families. However, if you would prefer to join us men in our jobs and can do everything we do, we welcome you to join us. Can you tell us what your particular strengths or specialties are? If the table had seemed silent before, it seemed even more silent now. Everyone turned to Tracy, who seemed both surprised and confused. Well, Jim let the silence last for a moment, then waved his hand and smiled. That's okay. We'll find out as we go along. Okay, now we're joining them a week later. Jim still rose early on Sunday and was having his first cup of coffee on the veranda when the kitchen door opened. He turned with a smile, expecting to see Kelly, but was surprised to see it was Tracy. Tracy smiled. Hi, I hope I'm not bothering you. Jim shook his head. Not a bit. Want some coffee? Tracy nodded, poured herself a cup from the percolator, and sat down. She looked out over the compound for a minute, then at Jim. I wanted to thank you and to apologize. He looked at her. For what? Well, first I want to apologize for being such a snark last week with that women are as good as men stuff. Jim smiled at her but said nothing. She looked down at her coffee cup, then back up. And I want to thank you for letting me try. I had expected you to argue or to knuckle under like so many men do. Instead, you gave me a chance to prove what I claimed and to learn something about myself and about others. Jim remained silent, sipping his coffee and watching her. Tracy took a drink of her coffee and continued. I enjoyed working with you guys, but I know I didn't keep up and you all had to slow down to let me stay with you. She hesitated for a moment. Can I ask you how old you are? Jim smiled. 62. Tracy shook her head. You're almost 40 years older than I am, and you still worked rings around me. She looked out at the field again, then back. This week made me realize that I've lived a life that didn't really call for a difference of the sexes. Most of my life has been about the mental, not the physical. At least not about anything really physically hard. In sports, we accepted, even demanded lower standards, just like in the military, without admitting to ourselves or anyone else that it was because we couldn't keep up with men physically. Even when I'd ask a guy to do something for me, I told myself it was just for convenience and not because I couldn't do it myself. She took another sip of her coffee and continued. I've learned a lot this week. I learned that men can do things women can't. I've learned that men should be appreciated for what they can do. And I've learned I don't make a very good man. Jim started to say something, but Tracy held up her hand. Please, I'm almost done. She looked down at her coffee, then back at Jim. I also learned that I missed being around the other women, talking about the things we talk about and doing the things we do. And I think the biggest thing I learned, something that surprised me and for which I will always be grateful to you for letting me learn, is how much you men really respect and appreciate the women for who they are and what they do. I never knew that. Jim smiled and nodded. Yes, we do. Tracy nodded back and smiled. I see that now. She took a deep breath. Well, if you think you can do without me, I think I'd rather go back to where I'm appreciated for what I am rather than tolerated for what I'm not. Smiling, Jim leaned forward and took her hand as his. Tracy, there are male lions and female lions. Neither is better than the other. Each is unique and perfect for what it is. And no matter how hard they might try, they can never be the other. You're a good woman, your husband and children are going to be very lucky, just like we're lucky to have you with us now. Okay, that's enough of it. Goes on, but that made the point. The interesting thing that I've found, as I've read a lot of comments and gotten a lot of messages and gotten emails and things, especially from our female viewers and readers, is how into preparedness so many women are. And I will be honest, that surprised me. But most women who are really, really into it, and I know there's a lot of guys out there who are fortunate and are very lucky to have a woman who is on board with him. Nothing is better than two working together. That's the way that we're supposed to be. But there's a lot of guys out there whose wives are 100% on board. And then there's others who aren't, and that's understandable. But there are so many women out there that I get messages from who say they just can't get their husband to break away from he won't understand the threats of the world. That's sad, because it's men who are supposed to realize and understand the threats of the world. Historically, it's been the men who were supposed to be in that role. We're supposed to accept that responsibility. We are supposed to know more about the world than women, because we're supposed to be the ones out there fighting the fights while they're keeping the home together. Neither is more important than the other. But society has changed so much that there's too many men out there abdicating their responsibility, and as a result of that, responsible, strong women have had to take the lead. And in many cases, they have had to shoulder pretty much the whole burden. Pulling along behind them somebody, a spouse who sometimes ridicules their efforts, and at the very best doesn't help. And that's a crying shame. And I think that's an indictment of the men of this age, and I don't limit that to any particular generation, because there's plenty of men my generation who don't accept that responsibility, and plenty of people my son's generation, who's 17, who do. So it's not a matter of generation, it's a matter of the individual and how they were raised and how they see the world and how experienced they are in the world, and their own personal feeling of responsibility. So kudos to you women who have, first off, way to go, you women who act as equal partners with men with your spouses in the preparedness. But especially kudos to those women, those of you who are having to carry the load pretty much by yourselves. Now, what this brings us to now is what would happen after SHTF. I think that's an important question. I think it's a question that maybe not a lot of people have thought about, so here's where I'm going to ask for you all to give me your opinions. Say it all comes crashing down. Say what happens in my books happens, okay? A massive EMP takes out everything in the world. Let's focus on those particular families. Let's say, and I'm going to stay with one particular type of the family. When both of them are on board, I think things are going to work very well. Okay, as well as could be expected, and their success will only depend on how well they have prepared. Okay. When the man has been the one who has been the driving force behind the preparedness, most women have a tendency to rise to the level of the emergency. Most women, not all women, just like all men don't, but most do. And here's one, you'll hear this saying, people will fall to the level of their training instead of rising to the level of the emergency or whatever it is. I disagree with that. I've seen a lot of people with absolutely no training at all, just just rise up and do exactly what needs to be done in an emergency, because for the most part, people are intelligent and resilient, and and these things do happen. So I have more faith in the untrained than many people seem to. But the people that I won't say concerned about it, because it's not my, it has nothing to do with me. But the people that I wonder about, and here's where I'm going to ask for you, what about these families, these couples, to where the woman has really been in charge, and the man has been too busy at the office, playing golf, watching sports, hanging with his bros, while the woman has been trying to explain, hey, there's bad things going on in the world. We need to be prepared. And he blows her off because, oh, that's silly. One of the people in our group is like that. She's an amazingly accomplished and intelligent person. She's a master gardener. She keeps up on everything in the world. And her husband, if there's not a golf cart, he's a great guy, but if there's not a golf course involved, he doesn't care. What's going to happen in those types of relationships, in those families? And then what's going to happen with not just the couple, but their children? One of the worst things that can happen, well, let me say, I tell you, there's two bad things that can happen, probably more than that. One is that the husband continues to be the lump that is pulled along behind the striving woman. And the other is that he thinks he ought to take charge because he's the man. You see, I don't have a high opinion of men who won't accept manly responsibilities and then all of a sudden want to be the man. Okay? I don't. And you see that in some of my books. That could be a problem here, because we have, it's kind of a reflection of what we have going on in the world so much that all of a sudden a person that hasn't been paying attention, that doesn't know, thinks they should be in charge, right? I don't know. The ideal, of course, gender roles, traditional gender roles, are there because they work. Not only are they biblical, but they have been proven over and over and over throughout the centuries. How am I doing on time? Yeah, throughout the centuries. When we would go down and visit my grandparents on the farm, we didn't see my grandmother out there on the tractor. Now, if my granddad hadn't been there, if she'd been a widow, she probably would have. She's got the strength to do it, but she wasn't. Granddad was out on the tractor, or he was out feeding the cows or the pigs or the chickens, or he was out whatever it was. He was out fixing the stuff, and my grandmother was in the house, keeping the house, preparing the food, making sure that the fort, as it was shipshape. If the roles had been reversed, they might have both still gotten done, but they would not have gotten done as well as they got done with them in their proper roles. I know that this will upset some people. I don't care. But when we do things the way we're supposed to do them, things work out better. And so this came about because of a question that somebody asked me. I'm really interested to hear your all's thoughts on this. And because I'm going to put this on the YouTube channel too, I'll say something to those who may not be used to this channel, and that is, if you're rude or if you're insulting, you will get banned, because I don't allow that on this channel. This is for intelligent, thoughtful people to have a conversation for everybody to learn from. So, what gender roles do I think would work in SHTF? Traditional gender roles. Sadly, those traditional gender roles are not being followed today by too many people. So what does that set us up for when it all comes tumbling down? I look forward to hearing what you all have to say about it. Remember, the whole series of books is available either through Amazon or on our website, stonemont.us. All the books are there. If you want them fast, get them through Amazon. If you want them signed by me, get them through the website. And there's a place there you can it'll say, what would you like Steve to write in your book? And I love doing it. So get that. T-shirts are up there, and a new surprise coming up pretty soon. So you all have a good day. Remember that we prepare well today in order to live well tomorrow, and I'll talk to you later. Bye-bye.